I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Celldweller, So Long Sentiment vs. Eon. I guess
the big homie Brian.
I guess this is their live record, and they did like a mashup with two of their songs. So there you go. For timely, topical, political commentary, you can hit us up in Middle America with Vin and Sori. There are multiple ways to get your song reviewed, dear listener. My favorite is the community option. $1 to gets you in a Patreon. And you join an alliance and all that good jazz, and then that allows you to help influence what songs that we do. Now, if you don't want to join an alliance, you want to go Ronin, you want to go by yourself, 125 Vin and Sori merch at gmail.com and PayPal will get you that. So that's the decision that this guy made. What's
Brian.
His name? Shout out to the big homie B. This video is brought to you by B, as you can see here. And without further ado, Celldweller. This is from their live album, I think it's called, Live on a Black Star.
All right.
There you are, dear listener.
Crushing weight, I'm sinking. It never goes away. The thinking echoes in empty rooms, decaying, alone to face the rest of me.
Ooh.
This is interesting. I'm pushing through face. I'm pushing through face down. Face down and pushing through. Alive. Face down and pushing.
under this crushing weight. I'm sinking.
Wow. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I had a hard time. I had a hard time getting it. So, sonically, these guys vocally sound like studio quality. It sounded like studio quality what they're doing. Sometimes people do that on live, like on their official live things. They'll put like the studio version of the vocals and they'll mix them. But I don't think that that's what these guys did. I mean, these guys seem like they could legitimately, like...
I think the girl's voice was added in.
Yeah, obviously. But, like, so they sounded good, but I was having a hard time, like, actually, like, getting into where it was going. Obviously, the beat, you know, you kind of, on instinct, are going to move with the beat.
Yeah,
but
I thought I liked it.
I don't know, man. It was just very, I just kind of like felt like I was like outside of the venue and never really went inside into the song, which is kind of weird, but
yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but anyway, that's kind of where I was. You seem to enjoy it though.
I did, and like, you know, what he's talking about, under this crushing weight, I'm sinking, it never goes away, the thinking echoes in empty rooms decaying, alone to face the rest of me. Like, that can be a really crushing, sinking feeling when you have to face yourself. And, yeah, I think that... But then he says, I'm pushing through face. And then he's like, face down, which I thought was crazy because it seems like he's pushing through. If you're face down, I picture your face down in the dirt. Like, you're not in a good spot, but he's still pushing through. He's pushing through it, so that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I've never really understood the whole, like, it's a hard thing to face yourself type of thing. And maybe it's because I spend so much time in introspection. I mean, I remember being like a little kid and like literally looking into the mirror, and like some of it was just my fascination with myself, like how I changed from being like a little baby kid to an 8-year-old. I thought that was like, it was just, I always thought like, this is so weird how you could change and look completely different than you did 5 years ago.
And then physically, or how?
Yeah,
personality?
literally as a physical, like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, how I looked as a baby to how I looked when I was a toddler to how I looked when I was 8, that it just blew me away because I was like I look like a different person. Mm-hmm. And nobody's like, hey, who's that kid? It was just a weird thing how like you could end up looking so different, but then nobody notices it because it's over. So anyway, I would just look at myself, and then you know, obviously as time went on, like I started thinking about, why do I do this? Why do I do that? Didn't really have anybody to like bounce the question off of, so I was just always kind of like introspective. I would review I still do like to this moment. Like I will review the day. I'll review conversations that I had, whether it's business conversations or you or the kids, or a conversation I had like 4 years ago. I was thinking about a conversation I had 4 years ago in the shower today. Like, so I spend a lot of time on introspection because like I'm very, very big on self-knowledge, because I just see a lot of people, because they didn't know themselves, they didn't have the consciousness of themselves, that, you know, end up in situations or make mistakes or whatever. So I just kind of, so I don't understand the crushing weight of looking at yourself. But then again, like I never really had because my parents were in so much Mortal Kombat all the time, like I never really developed a complex about trying to live up to anybody's, you know, whatever. So I was kind of like insulated from that. I guess that's a good byproduct of your parents being at each other's throats, I suppose. But so I never had this like, oh, I'm not measuring up, I feel terrible about it was like, I never had that type of situation. I was always just trying to figure out, why am I doing this, why am I doing that? And then I started to realize that the more I figured myself out, the easier it was for me to figure other people out. And then, you know, that went into a whole different thing. So I can't relate to that type of a line. And maybe that's what the song's about, and because I can't relate to it,
That's
that's why I
probably why you
probably
felt on
never
the
got into
outside.
the song. Yeah.
That's why you're outside the venue.
Because I was like, yeah, I was outside, because, I don't, what do you mean crushing? I don't understand that.
Like, I never had this feeling before. This only started happening to me after I got divorced. So prior to that, I felt pretty good about who I was and what I had accomplished, and I felt like I understood myself, and I would understand the world around me by my understanding of myself. And then as time progressed, things were much different than I expected them to be, and people were different than I expected them to be. And so I thought that I understood something about people, but then it turns out I didn't. And there was some people that, like, there's one conversation that, I don't know if you'll remember it, but we were talking about, like, a certain person because you were trying to help the person, and I said, well, I mean, if it was me, then you could do X, Y, and Z thing. And then you said, well, the person's not you, and, like, you were agitated about it. And I didn't really understand at the moment what was going on there, but then after, like, years later, I was like, holy moly, like, it's true, like, not everybody is like me. So to understand other people through my own, like, okay, if I was to do this thing, this is the reason I would do it, but somebody else might do the exact same action for a totally different reason. So kind of like, it kind of began changing my view of, I started second guessing things, and then looking at myself, I always lived up to, so I think that, there were people in my life, that I couldn't live up to their standards no matter how hard I tried. My mom, she was really easy to please, but there were other people that I couldn't live up to the standards that they had set for me. And so eventually, after trying, the way that I found peace with that is just to kind of be good with who I was, like, be happy with who I was. But then after a while, it seemed like it switched again, and I wanted that person's approval. And now I clearly don't have it, but and now I'm not even satisfied with my own opinion of my own self anymore. So when it's like facing yourself, like, it is a crushing weight, because it's like, if you're facing yourself when you're so proud of yourself and you're like, I am exactly who I want to be, and I don't have, I have minimal regrets in my life, well, that's one thing. But if you have to face yourself with failings and all these different things, then it's harder to face yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said,
Or maybe
I'm having a hard, I don't understand that, but I'm sure that, I mean, songs like this get big because, a lot of people
lots of
can
people
relate
feel
to
it.
So.
Well, I mean, like, if you were trying to climb a mountain and you fell down the mountain, you would say, well, I'm just going to try it again. And
right.
Like, sometimes you hit certain points in your life where you're like, the mountainside is literally just full of slippery mud, and my shoes too are caked with mud. And so every time I'm trying to climb up this mountain, I just keep sliding back down. And so you kind of have that face down, I'm crushed. You kind of have that feeling where it's like, I'm never going to make it up this mountain. And I think that when you get to that point of discouragement, then it's a lot more difficult to know what to do to move forward, because it's just...
Well, it's interesting when you look at the kids, because Johan, I mean, it might be an act, but I doubt it. Johan doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like, that's his famous line. Like, I told myself X, Y, and Z. Like, he just doesn't. That's kind of like, that's kind of, and he's always been like that. It's not something that I've taught him. It's like, he's just always been like that. Whereas Dorian cares a lot. Dorian is more like you, disposition wise, than even, his own mother. Like, he is exactly like you in that regard, I think. Mm-hmm. And, and obviously, his experience with his dad is different than your experience with your dad, but some of this is nature and some of it is nurture. I mean, people like Dorian or you as kids are very easy to manipulate. because you can say, okay, here's a standard, here's what we need, and this is what's going to get you the approval from dad, and this is what's going to get you a disapproving look, and so you know, you can kind of set that up, and they're very easy to control in that respect. But I spent a lot of time going the opposite way with Dorian because I know how easily he can be controlled and manipulated with that mentality, and I don't want that for him. But the deceptive part about it, and this is where the whole self-knowledge thing, the deceptive part is that Dorian believes that he's in some sort of position of power, and he doesn't realize that a person who has an understanding, an instinctual understanding of human nature, is going to be able to figure him out pretty quickly and manipulate the hell out of him. And so, whereas Johan, you know, his attitude comes with a whole bunch of different other pitfalls and things like that. So it's not like I go, okay, great, you know, Johan, this is great, because, you know, some of the you got laws in the house, and he chooses one day to obey them or disobey them, and it's within his own mind, and he doesn't care. And I don't think Johan has a problem looking himself in the mirror and saying, boom, this is where I am. Like, I don't think he'd be in any denial.
I don't think he's in denial, but I don't think he assesses himself either. I think he just says, well, whatever, and just goes about his day. He doesn't look introspective. Perhaps he is introspective about some things, but I'm not so sure if he.
Yeah, I don't
like. I don't think he dwells on his faults or his flaws or anything like that. I think he's just like.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. And I
think he's the only one like that.
Well, Zoe's a lot more complex. She's extremely complex. Dorian's pretty simple. Johan's pretty simple. Zoe is she's a very, very, very complex young lady. But yeah, and even with me, like I look at a flaw or something like that's not, you know, to me it's just, okay, well, we gotta fix it. If it's a work issue, okay, we gotta fix it. You know, whatever. It's just like, all right, well, we gotta fix it.
Yeah, you and him are the same in that.
You know, it's not something where it's like the end of the world, and, you know, I'm gonna, you know, yada, yada, yada. Like, who cares? Who cares? Like, you're not a perfect person. Like, nobody's ever gonna be perfect. So, what else could you expect to see? See, that's the thing that confuses me, like, as a Christian. It's like, well, if you believe that we're all sinners and we all need a savior, then what were you expecting to see when you looked inside? You were expecting to see an exception to that rule? You were expecting to see somebody who's not in need of grace or mercy? Well, like, that's kind of where I'm like, that's the part of it that I don't understand.
No, I don't think so. I think that if you're a Christian and you're viewing it that way, then you're saying to yourself, okay, well, I expect to see some major issues here, major sins or whatever, and I'll deal with those as they come. But you don't expect to feel defeated every single day, all day long.
Yeah, but how do you... that's the thing, is like, I can't understand the feeling defeated by it part of it. Like, you know, it's... Yeah, anyway. But, you know, I'm talking out of a place of ignorance, and I know that I'm talking out of a place of ignorance. Like, so, I mean, like, this song is definitely, it looks like he's struggling with the defeated thing, face down and pushing through. He's pushing through something, trapped and isolated, time is dislocated, eternity is what I mean. It seems like a guy's just, like, way too much in his head. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, a lot, you know, sometimes I wonder if, like, my upbringing, when I think about my brother, you know, he's in a very high stress situation, and he chooses a profession that puts himself in a high stress situation. I did that a couple of years ago. I'm in a high stress situation business wise. Like, moving around so much and having to always be the new kid, and, you know, like, we were in a state where literally every place we had the deck stacked against us, and the odds were always against us. And so I just wonder if that kind of preconditioned me to, like, not have, and then we always saw it ended up well. oh, cops are at the house. Oh, ambulance is at the house. Oh, somebody's trying to kill themselves. Blah, 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 blah. But, you know, a couple months later, everything was smoothed out and we made it through it. Oh, new kid at school. Okay, you're in an all-black school now. You're in an all-white school now. It was this big giant thing, and everything was stacked against us, and then, you know, and we pushed through it, we did what we had to do, and then after a while it was fine. So after, like, you go through that for the, like, 58th time, you're like, oh, okay. So, like, I don't understand the whole, like, oh, I'm defeated type of thing. I just wonder if, like, the way that we grew up kind of made it so that you kind of feel, I don't know, immune, but maybe you feel comfortable in it. Then I talked to my brother when he talks about some of the situations he's in, he's just like, it's just very matter of fact. And I have to pull back and say, this is an incredible thing that he just described, but it was just very, and, you know, so I just wonder if that's part of it, or if it's just, this is your disposition. This is just how you're born type of thing. It's a typical nature-nurture thing, but I'm sure.
Yeah, but I think that you and your brother are not the same, and you grew up in the same environment. And you're similar on that topic.
Yeah, we both handle stress pretty similarly.
Right, but you two are not alike, as in your dispositions and stuff, to my understanding. I mean, I don't know him super well.
My brother is a lot less vocal about his self-confidence than I think I am, but he's still, like, he's, you know, like, he'll still tell you, like, hey, only X% of people qualify to be in blah, 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 blah. So, like, he's got a lot of self-confidence. Like, he the alpha male thing is kind of funny, you know, when you look at it, because he definitely is, but he doesn't carry himself that way. But he's got that internal sort of, yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can overcome that, or whatever. Like, he, you know, that's just how he is. But again, you know, I don't know. I just think that you kind of get this sense of, if you've been through it enough and you come out pretty relatively unscathed on the other side of it, then you're gonna feel like that's all the issues. Like, all issues are like that, and you'll overcome it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the person, because, like, from my perspective, we didn't grow up in chaos. There wasn't that type of chaos at all. And so when my father was very much about, like, being proactive about making sure all your ducks were in a row before you accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So you can assure yourself that you're going to get the outcome you're looking for. And so when I can't seem to get all of my ducks in a row, and then there's some blowout at the end, I'm like, that's because our ducks weren't in a row. Where you're like, it doesn't matter if there's chaos at the beginning, it's going to end up panning out itself out. So I don't look at the end result where it did pan itself out. I look at the middle where there was chaos and say, if it would have been situated in the beginning, we wouldn't have landed in that place. And so I want perfection at the beginning so I can avoid the middle.
Yeah, and what I noticed, though, is that, you know, there's somebody I'm working with right now, and, like, everything has to be in line for her, and if it's not in line for her, there's a giant thing, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, figure out a way around it. What the hell? Like, why are you sending me these emails about blah, 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 blah? I'm like, can't you just, what did you expect to happen? You know, why do you think I'm paying you so much money? You think I'm paying you X, you know, a year because you're just supposed to cruise through life? Like, I you know, so it makes me, I have such a hard, and it obviously causes conflicts with us, but, like, with this other person, I stare at this email for like 10-15 minutes. I'm like, yo, I gotta send this email. To me, it looks plain as day. That's the other part of it. Like, there's some things that seem to be so simple to me. Like, this is so simple. Like, yeah, it's a little adversity. Okay, how do we work around it? Who cares? But that's not the way it is a lot of times. People, like, you know, they want to, you know, and you know, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, that's and speaking of introspection, you know, like, having to work with these various people who are constantly in this kind of mindset, And they're in a situation right now where there's hella things to look at and point to, and I kind of like look at myself and go, okay, why do you resent this person for their inability to get over this thing? Like, why? What is it about you that makes? And then obviously, I just came down to it's like you're just lazy. I'm talking to myself now. Like, this is one of the realizations I came to, in one of my, things that, in a shower or whatever, really, really thinking. It's like, you're lazy. You don't want to sit there and have to go back and forth with her about and why, and then I've got to create an entirely new lexicon with these people because, well, number one, there's a difference between men and women in communication. I'm sorry, but there is. And when I was in that situation, my boss would say to me, well, figure it out, Vin, and don't come back to me until you figure it out. And that was it. And so I went into the lab for 2 weeks and I figured it out. So I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm in this situation. Figure it out. Don't come back to me. No, that's not how those people operate. So now I got to come up with an entirely different lexicon. There's certain words that you can't use, otherwise people are going to burst into tears. It's just like, oh my God. And then really, I resent the fact that I got to sit there and think through what I have to say because I hate being in a situation where I have to think about everything that I'm saying, because that's how it was in certain situations growing up, because we were pandering to somebody that I felt that we were, letting off the hook or whatever as kids. So I hate having to do that with these people because it brings up those issues. So again, like, but I'm looking at all that and I'm like, yeah, I'm lazy and I don't want to create a new lexicon and blah, 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 blah. And I don't like beat myself up about it. I just go, okay, now I have that awareness about myself. So when I feel those feelings of resentment come out to those people, I go, okay, this is just, you don't want to do the mental work. You don't really resent these people because I love them. I love the people I work with. I don't really resent them, but it's just like, okay, here it is. It's your job to develop them. So come up with a new verbiage and off you go. So yeah, I hear you. And the other thing is, like, musically, it didn't kind of, like, I didn't know if it was a metal song, it was a techno song, which sometimes you're trying to do that.
That's what I thought was fun.
There was a breakdown toward the end that I'm assuming was supposed to be heavy. The band is just kind of like, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And there's some bands where it's like, oh, you can't put them in the box and they're great because they draw so much out of you. Mm-hmm. But these guys seem to be like a 3 on everything. And so. Oh
my gosh, no, yeah, I totally disagree
6, with you. Good solid 6 for me.
Wow, it's actually a 10 for me. I liked it all the way around. I liked when you couldn't figure out if it was like techno or if it was metal. Love that. And I actually was thinking this would be the type of concert I would really enjoy going to.
Yeah. This would be one of those ones where I'd drop you off.
Really?
Yeah, drop you off with your emo friends and you guys.
That's so disappointing.
And no disrespect to the emo people either. I'm just saying, I'd drop you off with your emo friends and I'd probably go and, I don't know, go to a gym or something.
That's so disappointing.
Anyway, there you are, dear listener. Been out.
Sorry out.
Gone.